can simply boil your tap water and thereby decontaminate the tap water. And as long as we're talking about the temperature of water, however, many people find that when they drink very cold water or ice water, so let's talk about how and why higher pH water can be good for you, and some of the best and in fact very inexpensive sources of higher pH magnesium enhanced or simply tap water that contains sufficient magnesium can be used and accessed. Many of you are probably wondering whether or not you can simply boil your tap water and thereby decontaminate the tap water. There I want to caution you. It turns out that some of the contaminants present in water are actually made worse by heating water. And again, I don't want to open up a whole catalog of different fears. I, like all of you, I presume, use water to cook. Pasta, rice, because I'm an omnivore, I do consume those things. I confess if I make yerba mate or any kind of tea or coffee, I tend to use a higher quality water source than tap water, even if that tap water is filtered, because I like the taste far more if I use a really good source of water. And again, because I'm not consuming those beverages in enormous volumes, that becomes a relatively inexpensive endeavor. But I would caution people against using boiling or heating of water as the only method to decontaminate their tap water, and instead to also rely on some of the filtration systems that I talked about before. And as long as we're talking about the temperature of water, there is sort of an ongoing debate online. It's not a huge debate, but a number of people engaged in this debate as to whether or not drinking really cold water or room temperature water is better for you or worse for you. This is a tough one to resolve. It turns out that if water is very, very cold, that is, if you drink it and you can feel that cold water making its way down to your gut, and you can actually feel it as cold within your gut, that's sort of a back of the envelope, or I should say, direct within the gut measure of cold versus body temperature water, that it is going to be slower to absorb. That is, you're going to feel it sloshing around in your stomach for a bit longer than if you were to consume water that is slightly warmer. That is not to say that you should ingest warm water or room temperature water. However, many people find that when they drink very cold water or ice water, that indeed it can alter the kind of a sensation of the lining of their stomach in ways that, at least to them, feel like it's altering their digestion. And that makes sense. The cells that line the gut are very temperature sensitive. You want this. So for a number of reasons, including not consuming food that is excessively hot or cold or damaging your gut. But in general, most people know the temperature of fluid that they want to ingest and ingest that temperature of fluid. So most people, for instance, on a cold day want a warm or hot fluid. Does that mean that you're not going to absorb that warm or hot fluid? No, of course it doesn't. You're going to absorb that fluid one way or the other. So drink fluids at the temperatures that are to your liking in that moment. In other words, what you desire in that moment. And don't worry so much about trying to avoid cold beverages or trying to make sure that you're always consuming room temperature water as opposed to cold water.